Hello everyone, welcome back to our third lecture in report writing for business. In this lecture, we will start explaining Chapter 3, Writing and Revising Your Report. The main points of this chapter are an introduction, pre-writing, draft the main body and appendixes, review the main body and appendixes, draft the conclusions, recommendation, introduction and summary, check and modify the report, issuing the report. An introduction. If sufficient time and thought have been devoted to preparing, planning, and possibly revising the framework, and to collecting and handling the information, you will now have a practical blueprint for the entire report. Writing will involve stressing the points in each section. This chapter is concerned with the scientific process of ordering, classifying, and sequencing. The order of writing and reviewing is important and should be as follows. Pre-writing. Take an overview of your report before you begin to draft it. There are 5 aspects to this, namely, targeting, remember your readers, outlining, remember your purpose and objectives, make sure your outline or general plan is just wide enough to include them, no more and no less. Structuring, refer to your framework. Is it still the most suitable or will it need to be revised, perhaps to highlight some particularly important finding? Developing, what will you recommend to overcome problems identified? Checking, are you sure that these recommendations are practicable? Draft the main body and the appendixes. These components should be written first. Begin with the section or subsection of the main body or with the appendix you feel most confident about. There are 2 important reasons for doing this. First, for any writer, there is a fear of facing the first blank page. By choosing to write what you find the easiest, you avoid this initial fear by immediately getting down to writing. Second, the more difficult parts of a project seem less forbidding once the easier ones have been accomplished. In the back of your mind, you will be aware that this draft is likely to be edited. This is not a reason to treat it lightly. The better your first draft, the better your final draft will be. So write as if this is your final draft. Review the main body and the appendixes. Once you have written your detailed findings, try to get about them for a while. Then, come back with a fresh mind. Evaluate what you have actually written and how it comes across, rather than still thinking about what you had intended to write and get across. As you read and reread your draft, you should evaluate whether the substructure of the main body is really the most suitable one to present your facts and arguments. Examine the layout and general appearance. Determine whether the tone and balance are correct. Review the use and format of tabulation and appendixes. Check the accuracy of figures and calculations. Check the use of English punctuations and spelling. This self-evaluation should give you a good idea of whether it's necessary to restructure your framework and or rewrite any of the main body or appendixes in order to get your message across as you had intended. Draft the conclusions, recommendations, introduction, and summary. These sections shouldn't be written until the main body and the appendixes have been completed, reviewed, and where necessary, redrafted. Each of these sections can now be directly related to what has actually been written in the main body and appendixes. The first section can now be an accurate summary of the report. Most writers draft these sections in the order in which they appear above, namely, conclusions, recommendations, introduction, and summary. Your conclusions must follow logically from your detailed findings. Your recommendations must follow logically from your conclusions. Your introduction should include everything your readers need to know before they read the rest of the report. While these sections are all important, you must pay particular attention to your summary. Make sure that the overall opinion is expressed accurately and unmistakably and reflects the findings and comments given in the main body and appendixes. It must be a true summary of the report and should highlight any areas requiring a particular emphasis. The summary should stimulate the reader's interest by outlining the notable facts, the main conclusions and recommendations. Remember that it's intended to serve two overall functions. First, to provide a summary of what the recipient is going to read or has just read. Second, to provide an outline of the report if the recipient is not going to read any more of the report. A summary must be interesting. If a reader finds it boring, the report will be filled. Check and adjust the report. Once you have completed your first draft, try to forget all about it for a few days or at least a few hours. Then reread it. Can you justify everything that you have written? Ask yourself whether you would be willing to say what you have written to the recipients face to face. If you wouldn't be willing to say it, don't write it either. Now, print a copy of the document you have prepared on your word processor. Once again, read it very carefully. It's far easier to spot mistakes and other shortcomings on a typed or printed document than on a document. Look out for any factual or typing errors or examples of poor presentation, including unrequired or inconsistent variations in size or style of lettering, headings and subheadings, numbering, highlighting techniques, and margins and spacing. Is every section, subsection, paragraph, sentence, and word really necessary? Are they accurate? Do they carry the meaning you intended? However, by now, you will have read and reread the draft. Now, pass the further modified report to your line manager. Managers often follow these steps as they judge draft reports. Integrate. What is the report trying to achieve? Question. Are all the facts, arguments, conclusions, and recommendations accurate, complete, convincing, and justified? Evaluate. How significant are the findings? Check. Will the writer need to provide any further evidence or remeasure the practicality of any recommendations? Adjust. Will the report need to be restructured? Edit. What changes will need to be made to the content or presentation? Are the most important findings, conclusions, and recommendations given due importance? Are less important findings limited to the main body as appendix or perhaps omitted? Finalize. Is the report now written to the standard recipients require, or in an organization with many levels of management to the standard other senior levels require? If everything is now considered satisfactory, the section and paragraph headings can be finalized, all paragraph and report references checked or adjusted, the pages numbered, the frontispiece drawn up, and, if necessary, an index collected. Issuing the report. In some organizations, the report would now be issued. In others, the following final steps are taken. Discussion. The writer discusses his or her findings with the key recipients and confirms the factual accuracy of significant points. Clearing. Any corrective action is agreed and the report is edited in the light of any mistakes or misunderstandings shown to have occurred during the investigation. Agreeing. The findings are agreed. Issuing the final report is issued. Now we will start explaining Chapter 6, how report structure varies in an economics report. The main points of this chapter are: an introduction, economic reports, different forms, economic reports versus other disciplines. An introduction. Report structure refers to the tone, structure, language, and presentation used in preparing a write-up. which may differ from one to another depending upon the nature of the report. For example, the report on economics would have a different structure, tone of language, and presentation from that which is used in an essay report on any economics topic. For example, the use of the word commodity preferred over the word substance in economics. Thus, the writer has to consider the nature of report to adapt the report structure that is suitable for a particular report. In the context of this chapter provides help on how does the report structure varies in economics report. In order to understand in more depth how the report structures vary in economics reports, we have two sections in this chapter. The first section explains how different forms of economics reports affect the report structure, whereas the second section compares the report structure of economics reports with the reports of other disciplines such as pharmacy, history, political science. Economic reports, different forms. A study of economics reports helps the students of economics that are given reports and dissertations on various topics ranging from micro to macroeconomics. In the creation of a report, a student of economics follows a structure that comprises of introduction, main body, and a conclusion. The introduction section of the report covers background information and sets out the objectives that are to be addressed in the main body of the essay. The main body is the essential part of the report that elaborates the objectives as outlined in the introduction section. At the end, the conclusions are drawn from the main body of the essay and computed in the conclusion section. In contrast to the other subject reports, the economics report is structured in a more comprehensive way, covering summary, introduction, findings, and recommendations. The tone of the language in a report is also different. Further, to enhance the readability, emphasize more on the presentation of a report as compared to an essay. A report is decorated with the tables and graphs that explain the data findings in a comparatively more persuasive way. Further, the dissertations reports are also given to the students seeking PhD in economics, which differ in the report structure significantly. The language in dissertations reports is needed to be kept more professional so that it looks like a literature. Moreover, due to higher volume size, the dissertations are divided into several chapters, such as introduction, methodology, literature review, data analysis, and conclusions and recommendations. Economic reports versus other disciplines. Apart from understanding the different forms of reports, it's also important for the students of economics to understand the individualities of the economics reports, which give rise to different report structures. The economics reports involve the use of series as well as mathematical and statistical computations, which is the most crucial aspect that makes the economic report different from the other reports. Economics report experts state that the data analysis and the drawing interpretations of that analysis is an important aspect of the economics reports. Further, it's also important to note that the report structures also vary depending upon the type of audience and the publication media such as books, journals, and news blog. The articles to be published in the news blog are written in an informal way, whereas formal report structure is adopted in books and journal articles. In addition to this report, structure is much more formal and more precise compared to the other forms of writing structures. In order to grasp the attention of the audience, it's crucial that the writer follows the appropriate structure of the report. Now, after you have gone through how economics report varies from the other subjects, as well as what kind of report structure does an economic report have, It's also to be noted in economics that the type of the report, the target audience, and the publication media are the crucial factors that vary the report structure. Finally, I hope this book is successful in providing most of the answers for creation of report structures of the economics reports. Now I can believe that you can produce good quality economics reports.